Hi guys, welcome to the Spoken Podcast, episode 10. Can't believe we've managed to do 10 episodes. I'm here today with Prue Howard from Savvy Style and Training. Prue, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I feel like I just got whiplash turning around to you.
Thanks for inviting me along.
Again. Yes. So we're trying a new style out today, which could be very interesting. It could look horrific. It could look amazing. But who knows, Prue?
As long as I look younger and slimmer, it'll be fine.
Well, yeah. Pete, do your work. All right, cool. So, icebreaker first.
Okay.
Your fantastic 5 songs.
Okay. So you know I'm greedy.
Yes.
Or I can't count, one of the two. So
yes. We could have 15 songs here.
No, it's not that many. First one is Ain't No Mountain High Enough.
Amazing.
Marvin Gaye. And yeah, just because it's so uplifting. Every time I hear it, I can't help but sing, and it does actually raise my spirits.
Yeah, that's cool.
Free, Donovan Frankenreiter, who is an Aussie acoustic guitarist who is a surfy from up at Mooloolaba, Cotton Tree area. So him, it's easy listening. It's a bit like Jack Johnson, but not as
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Dear Future Husband, Meghan Trainor, simply because I like the positive body image that it gives, and it's it's sort of towards bursting the bubble of the perfection of the Instagram images. Anything Dolly Parton, because that's my go-to at a karaoke.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is actually amazing. I love that.
Hotel California.
Classic.
Eagles.
Classic.
Working Class Man.
Oh,
yeah. And last one, Band on the Run by Paul McCartney.
That's right.
Which reminds me of camping as a kid with my dad.
The best song.
Yeah.
Literally the best song ever.
Yeah.
I love that. All right. My favorite.
Okay.
All right. As I've told you, I have to do this every single time I do a podcast with people. So these aren't my 5 favorite songs, but they're my 5 favorite this week, which I've been listening to. Yeah, kind of today. So, all right. I've got Benny and the Jets, Elton John. Everything She Wants by Wham. I'm a bit of a Wham fan, so I've gone again.
Wham.
I know, it's like I want the hair.
You're
I
vibing.
definitely want the Wham hair. I'm Your Man, Wham.
Yep.
Tiny Dancer, Elton John. And then Rich Girl by Hall & Oates.
Oh,
I know,
she's a rich girl. That one.
The best song.
Yeah.
I love it. I'm definitely a massive Hall & Oates fan, which is hilarious. Everyone's like, didn't picture that. But there you go. That's the whole point of the pod, Prue,
Absolutely.
All right. Okay, cool. Let's dive into it. Savvy Style and Training.
Yes.
Tell the fans. Explain your story. So obviously, so how I've met Prue, through a friend of a friend, my mother, Dee Thomas.
Yes.
Which is great. She knows everyone. Prue's going to be doing training with our barber and hairdressing students as well as our staff. A lot on the mental health side of things, but also one thing which I was really attracted to Prue's type of training was like that business coaching element as well. Yeah. Because that's one thing, you can come in here and do the mental health spiel, but definitely I even know when we sit down for coffee and stuff, which I tell you every time I speak to you. But it's like I pick up things from that, which you're probably not even trying to do.
No. It's
just our general conversation, and I'm like, that's amazing. I'm going to use that. And I'm like nudging mum, going like that. Write that down. So I don't want to say it's, because I know it's not just mental health training. You know what I mean? If you could give and it doesn't have to be brief. Please don't skimp out on anything, because I think this is really important for everybody to know exactly what you do, because especially the way that you do it, is just so unique. Like what I've said to you last time, I just love the kind of the reason behind the actual Savvy style and training as well. So
how it came about.
Yeah.
So it's been nearly 9 years since I started, and in that time I used to do a lot of volunteer work.
Yep.
And I was a volunteer crisis counsellor with Lifeline, so Suicide in Progress. But prior to that, I'd done about 15 years of working with different community organisations, doing volunteer work, and that was my voluntary side, and then my paid side. So in my career, I was in sales and marketing, and I was the last job I suppose I had was working with a high-end accessories, fashion jewellery, that sort of stuff company. And what I noticed,
which we can tell, by the way, look at the lovely earrings. I love it. Mum always says, she's like, oh, Prue's style is amazing, like that. So, yeah.
I went and did a personal stylist course, actually, to help with the program. So
cool.
So what I noticed is working in community and, with counselling people and so forth, that whilst it's a great space to be in and they do offer support for a lot of people, I noticed that there wasn't a strong focus on moving forward.
Yep.
And also, I have a really strong passion that with the right reframing, we can actually start to view our lives differently, and any trauma or any crisis that we've been, part of, we can actually start to step away and not be so, it's not who we are, so we can disconnect from the identity of that. So so in that community space, I identified that there's a gap in moving forward. And in the sales and marketing space, so I was like accessorizing women and all that sort of stuff. And I know that when I dress them up, they would swing their hips, and if I asked them to model it, and off they'd go, and it was it was fantastic to watch. But I knew the minute they took that accessory off, or they went and washed their hair for the first time, or they went and put their normal clothes on, if you gave them a makeover and so forth, that they went back to feeling like shit again. Yep. So the concept came about that I understood that you can't just style people from the outside. You have to style them from the inside out. Yeah, awesome. So Savvy Style and Training is all about, so we start with internal dialogue. We start to reprogram, the messages that we're telling ourselves. We start to emotionally disconnect from, that negative committee that meets in everybody's brain.
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
I do.
That it, makes us overthink things and, second guess everything and what have you, to start to emotionally disconnect. So I call it Frank, because it's not me. And so then you can obviously say, F off Frank.
Yeah, I love that.
That's so not true what you're saying, or...
Yeah, that's cool.
So it's about giving them like strategies, simple, easy to understand strategies that I back up with stories and examples, because we all know as trainers that, students will only ever take away 15% of what it is that we say. But if we embed the lesson in a story, they'll remember the story.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in telling them a story, they can also then recognise certain behaviours that are going on in their own lives, and then they're able to start to make a positive change. So it's about creating a big ripple effect.
Yep.
So if I teach you basic cognitive behaviour strategies and therapy, then you can't help but start to recognise what's going on in your own life. You can apply that in the workplace in how to manage other behaviours and traumas and, things that are going on. But also you're going to go and teach people. Yeah. And I really encourage everyone, go home and teach, because, it's the Gardner theory of teach to learn.
100%.
So if I go home and try and teach you, what happens is I go, oh shit, I didn't quite understand that thoroughly, so I can go back and ask more questions. Or I then embed it, so then it becomes part of my language. And then with practice, and as we tell more people, it starts to actually shift people's paradigms, so how they see themselves in their world, and it also shifts their behaviours as well. Yeah. And what I noticed is when I was working with like DV survivors and so forth, that what happened is once you taught them all of those skills, they slowly, as their self-esteem and so forth built, and they became more confident about putting in new boundaries and that sort of thing. What happened is then when we finished with the makeover, what happens is everyone around them goes, oh my God, you look so different. And it's often the first time they see their true potential, because if they've seen themselves as, a victim, or I'm never going to amount to anything or whatever, and you've worked on their self-esteem all the way along and reprogrammed, or showed them how to reprogram their internal dialogue and challenge that negative committee, what happens is you then give them a makeover and everyone around them steps back and goes, oh my God, who are you? I'm not sure I know you anymore.
Yeah.
And that is their window of opportunity to go, and you're not going to treat me like that anymore.
Yeah, that's cool.
As well. So that's why it's styling from the inside out.
Yeah.
And there's also a big focus on legacy or personal brand. So what is your personal brand? Who do you want to be in the world? Because if you become very clear, so begin with the end in mind, which is a business strategy.
Yep.
If you become very clear about what it is that you want people to have said about you, so say you were to die tomorrow, what do you want people to have said about you in your eulogy?
Yeah.
And if they're not going to say that right now, then you need to work backwards and go, well, who do I need to become so that's what they say? So that personal brand, and that all comes from business strategies and so forth, and I've just applied it to psychology, basically.
Yeah, that's so cool. I remember when you said that to me when we were having a coffee, and I was like, I wonder what people would think of me. And I was like, it wasn't good. No, it was good. It's just, I can still work on stuff, which I want to work on. So I don't know if trigger is the right word, but was there anything which made you really want to go into this? Like, was it just a passion? Was it something which you were like, I wouldn't mind going into that? Did something happen personally with you, or was it like to go into that kind of career? You know what I mean? Because normally it is somebody goes like, I had this happen to me, so I went into that, for example. Or we hear it a lot from the barbers. It's like, I used to hang out with my barber so often. I was like, what a cool job. I would love to be a barber. So it's like, it's a very... I suppose, how was that? How did you decide on that pathway? Was it just the fact like, well, I want to help people, like I want to train people, or was it,
So I have always, even in my Year 12 yearbook, Cameron, who was he's fantastic at art. He drew like the Peanut series, which is Snoopy.
Yep.
Did you look it up?
I did look it up. Yeah, I was like, right, okay.
So the Snoopy series, which is the Peanut series, he drew me in a Peppermint Patty. Is it Peppermint Patty? Oh, anyway, it doesn't matter. He drew me in a The Counsellor Is In.
Yep.
So I was always that person.
Amazing.
At school, but I also ended up in a DV relationship when I was quite young, and I was in that relationship for about 6.5 years, and I got to the end of that and I realised that I had to work on me so that I didn't then continue to have that pattern of relationships in my life. So I teach in all of my programs, you are teaching people how to treat you in this world by what you allow, what you condone, and how you present yourself. That gives people, so if you're not happy with your life, the good thing is you're actually in the driver's seat to change that. So, it was about taking responsibility. At no stage do I think I deserved the relationship that I was in. But I understood that I had attracted that because that's what I actually thought that I deserved. So, and I didn't have those boundaries in place, that when certain things happened in the initial stages, that I should have spoken up then. And my gut feeling was, I shouldn't pursue this relationship, and I ignored that gut feeling. So I think that in working with others and teaching these strategies, it gives them an opportunity to step back in their own lives and go, okay, so what am I enabling in my life? What do I need to implement in order to shift those patterns of behaviour? So does that make sense?
100%.
So that was it.
It's very interesting.
And because I had to teach myself, I think it's funny, if something comes really naturally to you, you get to the end and people go, wow, how did you do that? You go, no, I don't know. Whereas if you weren't good at something and you had to fail quite a few times, you have to go back to the drawing board. You've got to self-analyse. You've got to really break it down and be able to work out what steps I needed to do to become good at something.
Yeah.
And it's the same with building my personal brand, my self-esteem, and boundaries in place. So yeah.
Is there, like I know you were mentioning about when you were doing your volunteer work for Lifeline and stuff like that, was there anything where there would be a bit of a trigger of what obviously happened to you when you were younger in a relationship? Like, or is that now something you've worked on where if that did come up, then, I mean, obviously you were quite happy to just speak about it then. And is it something which it does, if it comes up, you're like, oh, geez, like I don't want to talk about that because that's my...
No, I don't feel that way. So when you actually do the course to be able to work at Lifeline, volunteer at Lifeline, it's for 6 months.
Yeah.
It's really intense. And, you know, you do group facilitation and you are constantly practicing on your, you know, your other students and so forth. And the whole lot is facilitated and supervised by qualified counsellors. So they don't actually let you out onto the public without you having worked through a lot of, you know, your own stuff. But I kind of proudly say it now because, look, it massively changed my life for the better because I decided to learn what I needed to break that pattern of behaviour. So, and for me, I think, you know, because I've worked with DV survivors and I work with youth who, you know, have DV in their families and all the rest of it. And I know they're often shocked to hear that that's what my story is.
Yeah.
So, you know, for me, it's about potentially inspiring them. And I don't associate that with my identity at all anymore.
Yeah.
I don't feel like a victim. I don't even call myself not a survivor because I worked hard to make that happen.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't give my power away around that.
Yeah.
I know that I worked hard to make that happen. So, yeah.
The only reason why I've gone into that is obviously because I know one thing which a lot of our students say is they still suffer with those triggers. So when they're speaking to, like when they're speaking to an actual client, for example, and a client may say something, instantly it's like they kind of like their brain shuts off, or they go, oh, that reminds me of the past. And then it's like slippery slope kind of thing. They go like they're up here, then they're down there, the roller coaster kind of effect. So that was the only reason why I mentioned that, because like it's difficult because I still have my triggers with stuff. And like a lot of barbers will go like, oh, like how do you, and I go, well, I don't, like I'm not at that point yet where I'm like, there was stuff that happened like through my 20s and it's kind of like, well, I haven't got over that. And when it gets brought up by somebody else who obviously doesn't know what I went through, then it's kind of like I may shut off and seem really rude and like I don't want to talk about that. Whereas they may go, oh geez, like I was actually, which is bad because I know it's all about we should be talking to each other and everything like that. But but you
still have to keep yourself safe too. And if you're not ready to talk about it, like I definitely had, you know, a lot of shame around it back in the, you know, and I didn't, it was my fault and I should have done this and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, all of that sort of thing that comes with it. But that's not a trigger for me anymore. And I suppose because I have done so much work around that, if something does, you know, trigger me, not necessarily around that, but around other things, because we're all human. That's just a natural part of life. I've done enough work to go, actually, that's your stuff. Yeah. You need to work through that. Yeah. And I have worked in enough situations with, you know, because I work with, as I said, DV survivors. There's a lot of behavioural issues that can, particularly if they've only just left. Yeah. Not always, but you know that there's a lot of anger. There's a lot of reactive behaviour, all that kind of stuff, and that's actually just part of getting over the trauma when you come out of that. But the same as, you know, working with youth and what have you. So I'm used to being in that situation where those big behaviours and those big emotions are coming at me. Yeah. But I understand that what part of the brain they're operating out of. So there's actually no point in reacting. It's not about me. Yeah. When they're behaving that way, it's not about me. And if something does trigger me, I'm like, I step away and I'll go, okay, you need to work on that. Is that, do you need to go and see a psychologist now just to debrief, which I do once a year. It's just like my dumping ground before I go on Christmas holidays. Or do I need to up my ante around, as you know, for me, it's more mental health can have a negative connotation. So I'm starting to reframe and rebrand that to mental fitness so that we're taking a proactive approach rather than reactive. So if I'm noticing that I'm, getting short-tempered or, anything like that, I know that is potentially burnout or, I need to go back to ground.
Yeah, it's very interesting that you say that. I don't suffer from a short temper, as my hand says.
Hello, how's your hand going?
It's getting a lot better. It's not the best. But yeah, I know that I don't want to say it's because I'm getting older that I'm starting to go like, all right, that's stupid. Like when I did that, I was like, that's so stupid what I did. But I think it is like, it's not me getting older. It's actually me training myself, surrounding myself with better people. Better people's big,
people with a higher emotional intelligence.
Exactly.
Who know how to manage their own emotions a bit better.
Absolutely. Like it's, Mum will be able to tell you what I used to be like. And I would like to think that I'm getting so much better thanks to medication. But also like what I mentioned to you, I've been doing breath work, like the cold showers and stuff like that. And it's pretty funny. I was speaking to Kieran about it last night and he was kind of like, oh, do you think it works? And I was like, I I actually do, yeah. Now, if you would have asked me this a year ago, I would have gone, it's absolute shit. Like, it's a load of bollocks, you know what I mean? Yeah. But I was like, so I've always had this massive fear of speaking in front of people, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
But I hate it. Like, I have a massive, I sweat like hell. I'm like, I can't do this, get all shaky. But what I've started to do, because obviously we've been speaking in front of
doing presentations,
40 odd people, doing presentations. I've been doing a little bit of breathwork before it. And good. It was like, I felt like the presentation went well, but I was like, I didn't feel nervous. I felt quite confident in speaking about, but it also helps. I'm speaking about something I'm very passionate about as well. And I think this is why this podcast could go on for about 5.5 hours, because we're both obviously very passionate about the topic, your training and everything. So, which we won't, everyone's like, oh my goodness, this goes for 5.5 hours. It's like, everybody's going to be like, oh, okay. All right, cool. So this is a difficult question, I suppose, but I don't want you to give away your training either, which is the kind of this is where I need to be careful about how I word this, but what's some kind of like key, I suppose, topics which you will kind of cover in your training, or what you would like to cover in your training, both with our college in general, but with Savvy Style and training, like in the future, like what's the real topics which you think this needs to be out there, like that we need to kind of get this, and this could be an hour long conversation as well, but it's
I think definitely challenging that internal dialogue, reframing our trauma to not be our identity. So putting it, for example, so I worked with a lady not so long ago who was in one of my groups, and she had been assaulted, and that assault was the catalyst for she just couldn't cope at all. She was suicidal, blah, 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 attempted. And over time, so over a 6-week period, we were able to reframe that she had in fact given all of her power to something that was 10 minutes of her life versus 50 odd years of other. So it's not that it wasn't important, but it was disproportionate how much of her identity and power she had given to 10 minutes.
Mm.
So that sort of thing, showing, helping people to reframe those sorts of things, understanding that mental health needs to be proactive, not reactive.
Yeah.
So mental fitness. God, the list is so long.
I know, this is the thing. That's why I was like, it's a tricky question, because literally there is so much to kind of cover.
Yeah.
The major thing which I kind of wanted to, and this is what I've been telling students as well, because I think a lot of people, when they just think of mental health, they just go, suicide.
Yeah.
Like that. And I'm like, well, no, it's not. It's like
there's a pathway.
Exactly.
That's sort of like, if you look at it like a, there's a spectrum.
Yeah.
From people who are self-diagnosing because they may not have a language around emotions.
Yeah.
So they are saying, I'm really anxious, or I've got anxiety, or, I'm depressed and what have you. And it could be, I'm definitely not belittling or making
100%.
small of it.
Yeah.
It can just be, for some of those, that actually I'm feeling really anxious.
Yeah.
That person intimidates me. This thing that I have to do, I feel overwhelmed by having to do this, or I'm having a bad day.
Yeah.
I'm a bit flat. I just don't feel like I've got the energy. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Then you have people on the other end who have gotten to the stage where for them, they can't see hope for a better future, and that's where suicide is potentially.
It's do you think, this is just my opinion, by the way, which means absolutely nothing, but I've found a lot more, like even my kind of friendship group, I could say, my mates back home are my age, old, but a lot of my mates over here are younger, because it was just, that was how it kind of worked out. And I can already see like the differences. If I reached out to somebody from back home, I would expect them to go like, all right, okay, and it would be a conversation, like a proper conversation.
Yeah.
Whereas over here, I don't think I could do that, if that makes sense.
In what way?
Like kind of, like I don't think they see the kind of the mental fitness or mental health side of it the same. They kind of think like, he's not really depressed. Like if I was
over
to
there
say
or
like,
here? Here, okay, yeah.
So I think because back home it's so normal for people to be depressed. Like, don't get me wrong, I love Wales and I'll always be Welsh, but it's a shithole. Yeah. Like it's just like miserable. Like it's great all the time.
I think it's got a lot to do with the weather.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas here, we don't have that.
Yeah.
Except for recently.
Well, but that's the thing also. You can even tell with students when they're coming in, it's like, everybody's moping around like this. And I'm like, geez, imagine if you lived in a country where it was like this 24/7. So, it's just like it seems to be, they don't take it as a joke, but it just seems to be that everybody, like what you said, is self-diagnosing. So sometimes people can just brush it to the side.
Yeah.
Whereas, like...
But it is an Aussie thing. She'll be right, mate.
Yeah.
Just get on with it, all that kind of stuff. So there is still a stigma here that it's weak to speak.
Yeah.
And that's why you've got organisations such as Livin', you know
exactly.
what I mean? That, where they say it ain't weak to speak. And it's really interesting, you see that people, particularly on Are You OK Day, they put it all over social media and all the rest of it. But the reality is, if you're not okay, very few people are courageous enough
absolutely
to come up and say. And it's funny, because I say in my programs, if you're really concerned about somebody, it's not are you okay, it's the second okay.
Yeah.
It's actually, and it takes courage to do the second okay. So if I said to you, hey Gareth, how are you?
Good,
I'm okay. And I go, but if my gut feeling was that you actually weren't okay, this is what I say to people. I go, you know what? My gut feeling says that I don't think that you actually are okay.
Yeah.
I understand if you're not ready to talk about it, but I need you to know that I see you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're if you ever want to talk about it or when you're ready to talk about it, you have a safe place here with me.
That's very interesting. I wanted to bring this up on the podcast as well. So, The Diary of a CEO.
Yes.
My favorite podcast
I've just started
ever.
to listen to it. Yeah.
It's ridiculous. So the latest one, he speaks with, do you know Spandau Ballet?
Spandau Ballet.
So the Martin Kemp, who's the bass player in that, his son is a radio host back home.
Okay.
So he was speaking about it. Basically what happened to him, his producer on the radio show worked with each other 7 days a week for 6 years, then boom, killed himself. So he was kind of like, and he did a bit of a program on it and everything like that. And he said the thing which I've started to do now is I'll ask everybody, are you okay? But I'll ask them twice.
Yeah.
Right? So they'll go
it's
like...
so important. And it's
crazy.
It's scary the second time. It is scary the second time because you're actually cutting through all the ego, all the bullshit and going, you know what? I actually see you and I see that you're not okay.
Yeah. It was like... It really hit home because my kind of experience with it was exactly the same thing. My mate did the same thing and he was kind of saying like, I should have just asked him if he was okay and stuff like that.
And that's your gut
I felt
feeling.
the same. Yeah.
You must listen to your gut feeling.
Yeah.
No one is ever going to go, I don't want to be your friend anymore because
exactly.
you cared about me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very true. It's, I don't know. It's a very interesting podcast. I'll leave you listen to it. I know you'll listen to it anyway, but it was kind of like there was a lot of stuff which happened in that where I was like, that hit home and it hit home hard. It was crazy.
Yeah. Well, it's the same as Guy Sebastian, he did that song about his friend who committed suicide and he worked with him, all that time and he didn't know. Yeah. It happens. It does happen, and I don't know, for me, I just think that's what we need to be doing as human beings. If somebody goes a bit quiet or, you haven't heard from somebody for a while or, your gut feeling is there's something wrong, I always reach out. Always reach out. And I think it's because of, so when working at Lifeline, when you're, part of a suicide in progress, they're calling because there is an ambivalence. And often, when people hit that stage, there's part of them that doesn't want to, and then there's a part of them that does want to. Yeah. And that's the ambivalence. And if you can reach out to somebody when your gut feeling is there's something wrong, then you don't know, that could be the reason they don't.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly what he said.
It's likely they will never, ever tell you. You will never, ever know that, but you just have to follow that. And maybe it is because I've worked with people who were suicide in progress. I don't have a fear around that. And I think it's because I understand that I'm not responsible for giving them the answer. Yeah, yeah. I'm responsible for connecting with them and letting them know that they matter.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's also the thing which we're trying to say to the barbers, because I think, and hairdressers, sorry, it's like I think they think that doing training will mean if somebody came to me and said, I'm thinking about killing myself, that they would go, okay, cool, sit down, I'll fix all your problems for you. And it's like, it's not like that. It's about, like what you said, how to deal with that and how to then kind of
respond.
Like, exactly.
Yeah. How to be there for them and how to take away the fear around the conversation so that you can actually be present for that person, not going, holy shit, what do I say? And that's actually a human response and that's also because we take we like, oh my God, I don't want the responsibility of this person's choices to be on me. But to be empathetic and to be effective as somebody in their trauma state, it's just to walk alongside them. Yeah. I remember one particular call that I had. This particular person was a bikie and their life story was horrific. Yeah, yeah. And, so it was a suicide in progress. And, our job as a counsellor is to walk alongside them. So you can imagine it's just two I always think of ducks, I don't know why, going down into a valley. And at the bottom of the valley is like their lowest part.
Yeah.
And we got to that lowest part and I was going, and I was a lot younger then, I was going, and my brain's going, oh shit, what do I say? That was my inside voice. I always talk about an inside voice versus your outside voice. So my inside voice was going, oh shit, what do I say? And, there's the power of the pregnant pause. Mm-hmm. So say nothing.
Yep.
And what happens is you step back. People can't help themselves. They will fill the gap.
Yeah.
And because I said nothing, even though inside I was panicking, that was where I really learnt the power of not speaking. And he said to me, you know what? I said, what? He goes, I've had other shit days. I go, yeah. He goes, and I've got through them. I go, of course you have. He goes, I'm going to get through this. I went, absolutely you're going to get through this. And zoom, we were straight back up to the other side of the cliff.
Yeah, amazing.
So
Cool.
Does that make, so if we just need to get our ego out of the way.
Yep.
And just be there for people and sit in that pain with them. And it's actually human nature. 90% of the time, it's human nature that they will get back up again as long as they feel a connection and supported.
It's very interesting what you said about the pregnancy pause because, again, Diary of a CEO, and I can't remember her name, which is really annoying because it was a really good podcast. I'll have to let Pete know. But she was saying, she goes, oh, well, I do the 5-second rule, which is she'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Cool. And then go from there. Now, again, she was saying she's now utilized that in if somebody was aggressive towards her or anything like that. It's kind of like that. And I've been using that for my temper, which I should have done before I punched the door. But
it's actually, so I did speech and drama for lots of years at school. So they call it a pregnancy pause. It's something that you use for dramatic effect on stage. So that's where I originally learnt it. Yeah. But then when I was in sales, you actually use it to determine what the true barrier is in people moving forward in purchasing something. So if you shut up, they can't help but fill in the gap and they'll tell you. So it's funny how in 3 different roles and different industries, the same thing has a positive impact.
Absolutely. But that's probably why Mum is terrible at sales, because she doesn't shut up. I'm joking.
That could also be because people feel, and when you're a rookie, when you're new and all of those, your nerves and your ego goes, holy shit, they're not talking. Maybe I haven't said enough. Whereas if you just step back and just let it, what happens is then their true, reason that they're going, they'll actually come and go, yeah, I'm not sure if that car will fit in my garage. Or, you know what I mean? Whatever it actually is. And then you can actually address. Yeah,
interesting. Arthur, I hope you're listening. Arthur does our sales. And Lani, actually, you should both be listening. We're all salespeople, right? That's what I got told in my first job.
I'm still in sales. I'm just selling people their true potential.
Yeah.
So, I think, and people go, oh, I'm not a sales, but, like it's a dirty word, and I'm like, hello. I've got 4 children. I sold the concept of vegetables, healthy eating. Hello, we're all doing it. Yeah. And even when you get into a relationship, you're selling the features and benefits of you as a partner. Absolutely. So when people go, I'm not in sales, you go, you are.
Yeah. Every single day.
And if you just own that and learn those skills, then you'd be amazed at how much.
Very, very interesting. All right. I don't know how we're doing for time, but I'm guessing this may be a good point to go into the next segment, and then maybe we'll finish off on that one and then do part 2. So I'm not saying future goals anymore. Okay. I've decided, and the 5-year plan I don't like.
Thank God.
I know. I was like, oh, that's so cheesy and naff. And I've been listening back to the other podcasts and I'm like, oh, I wish I wouldn't do that. So what's your goal for 5 years now? It's more, what would you like to see next happen for yourself as Prue?
Yep.
And also Savvy style training as well. So it could just be, I want to do something tomorrow, for example, or whatever. Just what do you kind of see as the next kind of step for yourself as well?
Yeah.
And obviously we need to discuss your cakes and the treats which you brought in for me as well, which nobody will be getting a hold of. I've decided I'm going to eat them all myself, which is fantastic.
Good to know.
And it's great. Mum won't even listen to this before I eat them, so it's
no
great.
one will hear it before you.
I know. I'm like, yes. So superb. But yeah.
Do you know? So when I think about savvy style and training, it's funny. When I first started it 9 years ago, I actually volunteered to run it for free for a food bank and a charity up in Logan who had been really kind to my dad when he had cancer.
Yeah.
So I volunteered to run it for free for them, and it has actually taken on a life of its own. I've been involved in a few pilot programs. You know, it's we've won awards. Yeah. You know, we've just been published in a magazine that goes for, which is all about youth work and so forth. So it's sort of like the dream that I dream for my business is actually probably not as big as what has already happened.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, you know, for me, I just continue to move forward that I want to impact as many people's lives in a positive way as I can. And I think that, you know, the universe just kind of makes that happen.
Yeah, that's cool. That's so cool. Good answer, Prue. Good answer. That's a very good answer. That's cool. And for yourself?
For me, it's, which I suppose still comes, so two parts. Renovating my house in my spare time.
Yep.
And
because you've got loads of
I
that,
know,
yeah.
Absolutely. And the goal is to buy a holiday home with equity. So we're not going to sell, but to increase the equity so then we can, and then probably on the savvy is to facilitate a pathway where I can reach more people that's not as physically, I don't have to physically be everywhere, so that and don't get me wrong, I'm never going to get rid of the face-to-face because I love it. I love reading the room. It tells me what's working and what's not working. So, you know, my groups teach me just as much as I teach them. But to be able to reach more people, which obviously needs to move into an online version.
I still think you need, and I know somebody else already done this, which again was the Stephen Bartlett podcast. But like I think they were saying they've had over 3 billion views on their TikToks, but around mental health. So she just does like a
I think I listened to that one. And I was just listening to one, which is from The Mentor, so Mark Boris, where on TikTok, the guy it's a chiropractor.
Yeah, it's crazy. But they put the microphones next to their back and go,
I know.
And it's like, I love listening to that. I love it.
Nails on a blackboard to me.
Yeah, no, I'm weird with that stuff though. It's like, same as the pimple popper. It's like that stuff sends me to sleep. I'm like, that's nice. That's relaxing.
That's just weird.
I know, it's weird. When I first met Lani, right?
Yeah.
This was obviously a couple of months after we'd started dating, but she stayed over my place and I kind of like rolled over. And she noticed I was on my phone and she's like, what are you watching? And I was watching the Pimple Popper because I went through about 3 months where I couldn't fall asleep unless I watched a video, right? So her whole like playlist, the Pimple Popper, I've watched like 10 times each. Yeah. But I was like, I would lie in bed, I'd watch a video, fall asleep straight away. It was something which just triggered me to just fall asleep.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know I am weird, but there you go. Who cares? But you definitely, the social medias, I know I said to you last time we spoke, Prue, but I think it's just something which, like we're trying to do it a lot more with the training. It's annoying because it's free content and it's such good content. Yeah. But there is a part of me which just thinks it has to get out there. Like it has to. And then everything else will come. Everything else will come.
It's funny, I remember doing something when I first started these programs with another organisation who I used to work with and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, and I was so afraid that, oh my God, you know, I'm going to give away my content and all the rest of it. And, you know, now that probably represents 2 minutes of my programs now compared to how heavily I focused on that one component. And it's like, so what you think now is, you know, the bee's knees of your content. In 5 years' time, you'll go, that is so 5 years
Exactly.
ago. Do you know what I mean? So that I always remind myself of that when I start to feel afraid. I go, stop that.
Well, I know it's something which we spoke about when we had coffee last time as well, which I always think in the back of my head, because I always think that. I'm like, what about if somebody copied that? What about if somebody did this? And
you are the magic.
Exactly.
That's my husband says to me, you are the magic in your programs.
Yeah.
They can't duplicate that.
And that's exactly right.
You come with life experience and a skill set that is not going to be duplicated. So people can be good at barbering, you know, all those different elements, but it doesn't mean they're going to be you.
Yeah.
With your life, you know, one thing that strikes me about you, Gareth, is you're so passionate about personal development. You are chasing, like I was back when I was really angry and all the rest of it. You are chasing that, and that is so inspiring. You will inspire so many people, so many of your students along the way as a positive influence. Yeah. Particularly being a male in, you know, an industry that, you know, now it's trendy and hip, but in the past it was a bit of shady, you know. So, you know, I think it's good. I think you're doing a really good job, and you are the magic, just like I'm the magic in mine.
Exactly.
I've had people try and copy the programs, and then they're ringing me going, I can't get them to engage. I can't get, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I still help them, you know, because that's who I am fundamentally. But, you know, you just need to remind yourself of that. You are the magic.
It's funny when you say you still help them, because I literally had this conversation with somebody yesterday. I'm like, oh yeah, but I still help them. And they're like, what? Why? And I'm like, because that's who I am. Sadly, I do have traits from mum.
But that's your brand, and that's my brand. You know, is, you know, I'm a trainer, even if I didn't have a qualification.
Exactly. Yeah.
I can't help myself. That, and I think that's part of your life purpose. You know, so mine is to leave a positive imprint on the world through raising others up by showing them their true potential, but also arming them with the skills to achieve it. Yeah. And if that's who my brand is, even if you're in, you know, potentially trying to take my ideas or whatever, I think, you know, there's such thing as a karma bus. Yeah. So I just let that go. I can't control what other people are going to do. I can only control what I focus on. And it's same as, you know, so you are the magic, and the other thing is stay in your lane. Yeah. Whatever your lane is, wherever you're going, you stay in your lane. Don't worry about what everyone else is doing, because they're going to be doing it different. Their life journey is different.
Absolutely. I should finish on this one. But I got told by one of my good friends, he goes, do you think Mac worries about what Windows does?
No.
Right?
Yeah.
And I was like, that's so right. And he goes, well, shut up and stop complaining. Because he was like, and it's a very good point. And I think exactly the same on your training, Prue. You know what we think of your training. Like, it's just something which, again, it sets us apart from everyone else, because it's what people need. Like, if it was me, I would say anyone with a driver license, anyone who went to school, whatever, would have this training. And I say the same thing about first aid. It's absolutely crazy, and hopefully it just keeps on going like the difference it has been in the last 10 years. Yeah. Hopefully that just keeps on going and going and going. Hopefully we don't have to go through COVID for that to happen.
Yes.
But that's amazing. And the camera's gone off again. How good's that?
Perfect.
I know, so it's perfect timing. So I'm like, I think that's like 50 minutes, which is perfect. Okay. So we will stop it there. Prue, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you. Again, thanks for having me. Okay.
This is like, I have a feeling there'll be plenty of parts to our podcast with Prue, but thank you so much. I know you are very busy. One day we will put up your calendar for people, because they will be like, what? So I thought I was a busy person, and then when Prue was like, I was like, oh, can you come in on this day? Oh, no. Look at this. And it's like cakes, training. Like, I love it. It's so cool. So honestly, thank you so much, Prue. And I can't wait to see our students under your training. It's going to be so good. It's amazing, and I feel there's so many more things to come, which is unreal.
Thank you. I'm really looking forward to it, because for me it's so exciting and energizing to work with like-minded people. Yep. So thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you very much. Thank you for tuning in, guys. whether on Spotify podcasts, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. Thank you for viewing. Thank you for listening. And yeah, we'll be back soon. Thank you.
Thank you.